This is the top 10 shortstops of Major League Baseball, as once again we present to you our ESB 2024 player rankings. And once again, I am joined by at least two of my co-hosts. I have Tom and Joe, no Corey, for today's episode, while we're covering the shortstop position today. And for today's countdown, kicking things off, is going to be my good friend, Mr. Thomas Waspel. So, Tom, let's kick off our top 10 list.
Of course, and we're going to start off with number 10 with MLB breakout star, came out as hot can be, Ellie De La Cruz in the 10 spot. Last year, his overall numbers really did kind of dip after that incredibly hot start. But I think we have him on the list just because he has so much potential. And if he can harness some of that, especially get his batting average up a little bit, he will be an absolute terror in the NL Central. Number 9, we have someone who previously was a lot higher up on the list, former Platinum Glove winner Carlos Correa. Has battled through some injuries the past couple years. Played 135 games last year, 136 136 games the year before. So he has fallen off a little bit in his time in Houston. You wonder with the weaker lineup around him how much that affects him coming from Houston into that Minnesota lineup. I might have messed that up before. If I did, I don't care. I messed it up. And then at number 8, we have the smooth glove. We have Dansby Swanson of the Chicago Cubs, who is here really a lot because of that glove. He's a very good defender. He might be the best defensive shortstop in baseball, although no platinum glove for him too. He's won 2 gold gloves in a row. Not a total slouch at the plate, but he is about league average hitter is what you're going to expect out of him. And although he was dinged up a little bit last year, the previous 3 seasons, he really didn't miss any time. So he's a guy who you really can count on. And that's what we want to see out of the guys on this top 10 list.
Yeah, and listen, I'll touch on Dansby Swanson here. Tom alluded to it. Probably the best fielding shortstop in the game. You'll actually find that most of the guys on the list who are the best fielders at the position of shortstop are actually in the NL at the moment. But Swanson is the guy that everybody's chasing. And his offense has evolved to the point where you said it. He is about league average. He kind of teeters between 10% above league average and directly at league average, but 22 home runs, 80 RBIs, 244, 328 on base percentage. You'll take that if you're getting the plus defense that Swanson brings to you and is playing basically a full season's worth of games. He played every game in 2020. He played 160 in 21. He played 162 in 2022. And last year he played 147. If that's what your shortstop's going to give you and win a gold glove, the offense is almost an afterthought. So that's why Dansby Swanson's on this list. If his offense gets to the level where it was in 2022, where he hit 277 and had a 330 on base percentage, he can move up a little bit on this list, but he is here predominantly because of his glove.
And I'll throw the shout out over to the young Ellie De La Cruz, who rounds out our top 10 list. And Ellie, for his 2023 numbers with the bat, a little meek. He was off to such a hot start in his rookie campaign where he hit 328 in 29 games. That is, stole 16 bases and turned that to 35 total by year end of 2023. Finished his year with a 235 average, but again, you look at the 35 stolen bases. You like that. You like the on-base percentage at 300, 710 OPS. So Ellie De La Cruz about to take off in what could be his breakout year in his sophomore year with the Cincinnati Reds. But we are going to move forward to the next set of shortstops. And I'm going to start with a player who was on our third base list last year and still with the Baltimore Orioles. That is Gunnar Henderson. And for Gunnar Henderson last year, put up a fantastic year. And although 255 batting average, 28 home runs, 82 RBIs, he won the Rookie of the Year last year. He was a Silver Slugger at his position, and Gunnar Henderson is in the number 7 spot. Then we have Bo Bichette at the number 6. And Bo Bichette, a bit of a mainstay here on our shortstops list, still rocking out with the Toronto Blue Jays. And last year, Bo Bichette in an all-star season had a 306 batting line, 20 homers, 73 RBIs for the traditional stats, an OPS of 814. So a fine season for Bo Bichette. And then we see Mr. Mookie Betts on our list, which wasn't the case about a couple of weeks ago. And I know Joe's going to touch on that a little bit more. But Mookie Betts, who's arguably a top 5 player in all of baseball, he is here at the number 5 spot. So, Joe, do we have a little bit more elaboration to why Betts is in the number 5?
Yeah, so I mean, the thing that makes Mookie such a great player is that he's not necessarily the most prolific hitter we've ever seen. We've seen years where he's, batted around 270, hitting 20 to 30 home runs. He is an effective offensive player. I wouldn't say he's a prolific offensive player, but what makes Mookie Betts great is the fact that he does everything well, and that includes defense. He is a superstar defensive player. So for him to turn around and now move to shortstop, which in reality, defense plays a bigger part at shortstop than it does any other position on the diamond, except maybe catcher, it raises a flag. So we felt that Mookie, it wasn't fair to put Mookie ahead, having only played 18 games at shortstop. His offensive prowess is there, but we can't in good conscience put him ahead of the next 4 guys ahead of him who are proven shortstops, who play the position extremely well and do the offensive part of it. So we have to see a little bit more from Mookie. We have to see that he can play shortstop at that major league level. If he does that well, he could be number 1 shortstop by the end of this year.
I got a wild question for you guys if you're not looking at it right now. Any guesses what Mookie Betts' career WAR is at this point?
I'm looking at it, so I can't guess.
Career WAR, I'm gonna go 11.3.
No,
you are. Rich doesn't know how WAR works. His career WAR at this point is 65.
Yeah.
Basically, if you're over 50, 55 is where you start to be considered a Hall of Famer. Mookie Betts could end up with an over 100 career WAR, and that's wild. I would have never thought his WAR is that high.
I mean, Tom, you're damn right. I don't know how WAR works because I'm thinking like in the terms of average, not in the terms of total.
Yeah, well, I mean, an average. I mean, 11 would also be an insane number. Anyway, it's a crazy number at this point of his career. If you look at other guys, age-wise with him, I was shocked. He's a great player, but I was shocked to see the number that high can be.
To Tom's point on that, and to reinforce my point, of that WAR, about 14 of it is from defense. So that's why I'm docking Mookie here a little bit for the move to shortstop, because we just don't know if he's going to maintain that defensive prowess at a position he hasn't played much in the majors at all.
Yeah. I want to touch real quick on Gunnar Henderson. He's, again, as Rich said, was on our third base list last year. Might be on our third base list this year. If we redid this at halfway point through the season, it could be on the third base list with Jackson Holiday coming up. Not sure exactly what the O's are going to be doing with the top prospect in baseball and where he's going to end up with one of the former top prospects in baseball. But Gunnar Henderson, Rookie of the Year last year. A good hitter, a very good hitter, a solid defender as well. The future looks bright and looks scary for everyone else in the AL East, because boy, the Orioles got a bunch of young, scary guys.
Yes, they do. Joseph, our next trio of shortstops. What do we got?
All right, so coming in at number 4 is the young, sensational, newly extended Bobby Witt Jr. of the Kansas City Royals. The young speedster often can be compared to the AL version of Corbin Carroll, but at shortstop, at least in my opinion, he's number 4. Number 3 is Trey Turner, one of the big free agent shortstop signings last season. He had his first year with the Phillies, which really took a few months to kind of gain traction, but ended up having a good year, got close to a 30-30 season. He's at the number 3 spot. And then at the number 2 spot for all us Met fans out there is Francisco Lindor. Lindor had a 30-30 season last year, the first that the Mets have seen since David Wright played 160 games, played a Gold Glove worthy defense if it wasn't for Dansby Swanson in the NL. But 31 home runs, 98 RBIs, 254 average with 336 on base percentage and a 120 OPS plus. Lindor has kind of found it the last 2 years with the Mets and really kind of is what they traded for originally after a rough 2021. And the key with Lindor, and I'll swing it over to you guys to talk about the other two. The best part about Lindor is he plays every day, and the Mets got a shortstop who plays every single day, who's going to hit 30 home runs. He's not at the point anymore where he's going to bat 300 and hit 30 home runs. He's not going to be that kind of player that he was in his prime in Cleveland, but it's enough to be a Silver Slugger. It's enough to be the top shortstop in the National League and in the conversation, I think, with our number 1 guy at being the best overall shortstop in baseball still.
I've been saying for years, I think Francisco Lindor should be made captain of the Mets. I think if it wasn't for the whole thumbs down booing of the fans with Javi Baez, which I think was so blown out of proportions, he might be already. I think he would be such a natural leader for the team with the charisma. I think he would just be. I think he really should be the face of the Mets, and they should name him captain. But I want to touch a little bit also on Trey Turner. And listen, if we were ranking players just based on their abilities to slide, Trey Turner would be the number 1 player in baseball with the coolest sliding guy who has really ever existed. He is speedster. He's going to get you 25, 30, 40 bags, depending on how the team wants to utilize him. His power is kind of streaky. There's years he hits in the upper 20s, and then there's other years where he hits much less. He's been relatively healthy the past few seasons. 2021, he was hurt for a little bit. But he's I think even last year he might have been our number 1 shortstop. I feel like he
Turner was our number 1 shortstop.
I think he was. So he has fallen a little bit here. But the shortstops is tough. I mean, next year you could see any number of you could almost see almost anyone on this list be number 1 next year. Probably like 7 or 8 of them. You can make the argument. If Bobby Witt Jr. was number 1 next year, I know Rich could talk about him. I don't think anyone would be shocked.
Right.
Hot take, he's going to be the number 1 shortstop next year in 2025. Bobby Witt Jr. after this season. I haven't done any kind of shout outs on any of these countdowns, but I'm going to shout out to Chris Nieves, who's one of our supporters, who actually left a comment saying he thinks his hot take is Bobby Witt is going to finish the season with the American League batting title. And I can absolutely see something like that happen for Bobby Witt. He has that kind of potential. Witt last year, 276 batting average, led the league in triples, 30 homers in his in this breakout season for Bobby Witt. I'll even go out and say I think Bobby Witt Jr. will be the sole reason why the Kansas City Royals had clinched the American League Central for 2024. I'm giving him that nod. Bobby Witt Jr. is at 4 now, but by 2025, he will be the number 1 shortstop. But
someone has to win the AL Central, so you never know.
I agree. But even though I think he's going to be the number 1 shortstop next year, we're not next year. We're this year. So we have to talk about the number 1 shortstop of this year. And with our number 1 shortstop announcement, we go over to Mr. Thomas Waspel. Tom, take it away.
Number 1, we have a mainstay on one of my personal fantasy baseball teams, Keeper League. We have Corey Seager of the world champion Texas Rangers. And listen, if you're going to unseat him in the number 1 spot, not only do you have to play very good defense, you're going to have to bring your bat, because this is the best offensive shortstop in the game with the mix of power, batting average, slugging. He's not going to really, steal a bunch of bases for you, but he is a true slugger at the shortstop position, which is something you don't always see. We have seen, better hitting shortstops as of late, but I think Corey Seager is in a class of his own in that terms for in baseball right now, second in the MVP voting last year, and just an absolute most important cog in the middle of that championship Rangers lineup. Corey Seager is our number one shortstop of 2024.
Yeah, and the wild part about Corey Seager is he only played 119 games last year, and he led the league in doubles with 42. That is an unbelievable number. Listen, the only thing that prevents Corey Seager from being the best player in the game of baseball is his inability to stay completely healthy. He's had several seasons, 2021, 2019, 2018, where he would spend extended time on the IL, even 2023, but we finally saw it come together where it looked like we got a full version of Corey Seager. 2022, it kind of looked like he was rusty from barely playing the last few years. So he comes over to Texas. They had that down year in 2022, but they exploded. Him and Marcus Semien exploded in big ways this year. And I expect if he can stay healthy and play 150 games, I mean, we could be looking at a guy who hits 45 home runs and bats 320 from the shortstop position. And that's more than enough to win MVP. And not to mention, he can win a Gold Glove, no problem. He is a great fielder when he's healthy and when he's on that field.
Absolutely. And I agree with this pick of Seager being the number one spot. And I said it about a couple countdowns ago about the second baseman when his teammate topped the list and Marcus Semien. This is a player that in that first year of Texas, even though he was an all-star, wasn't really the best season for Corey Seager. And he came out big in a big way in 2023 and helped lead his team to a World Series championship. And who can't forget about that epic home run he hit in the World Series? So Corey Seager tops our list of shortstops, and that will do it for another countdown of our shortstops here, or another countdown of our ESB player rankings, and we'll leave you with our shortstop list and remind you to like, share, and subscribe to Empire State of Baseball. Take care.